Okay, let's take a look at some of these problems on pages 106 and 107. The first four problems that we're going to look at are 2, 4, 6, and 8, and they're just like the ones that we did previously. So I'm actually going to ask that you would, pause for just a second to try number 2. So you can turn off the video for just a second, and I want you to see if you can factor it. Again, you're going to be looking for two things that multiply to 10 that add to 11, and then this guy is going to have to decide what the signs are in the parentheses. So turn off the video and see if you can factor that, and come back and I will walk you through it. Okay, so we're looking for two things that multiply to 10. Our choices are 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. There's nothing else that multiplies to 10, so that really narrows down what our options are. Again, we have to split this up equally between the two parentheses, so this is going to be n and n. I know that these two terms right here have to be both positive or both negative, because there's no way I could multiply one positive and one negative and get a positive here, right? So it's either going to be positive 1 and positive 10, or negative 1 and negative 10, positive 2 and positive 5, or negative 2 and negative 5. But because they're the same sign, I know that I'm going to be adding the number parts, right? And when I add the number parts, I have to get 11, all right? So which of those two did that for you? You should have picked 1 and 10, because when I add 1 and 10, I get 11. With 2 and 5, I add them and I only get 7. Right, and then this guy gets to decide. So if I want to end up with a negative 11, should I have done two positives, positive 1, positive 10, or two negatives? Hopefully you pick two negatives. Right, so that should be it. Hopefully you remember to check it. I'm going to box this in because I can tell you it's the right answer, but let's just check it so that you see what you should have done. N times n is n squared. N times negative 10 is negative 10n. Negative 1 times n is negative 1n, or you could just write negative n, and negative 10 times negative 10 is positive 10. When we combine like terms, we get n squared. These give us minus 11n, and then plus 10. Okay, hopefully you got that one without too much trouble. All right, so I want you to try number 4 also, but let me just say you're multiplying two things to get 12. Since this is negative, they'll have to be opposite, so they'll subtract, and you're going to get 4. So you're going to write the possibilities and see if you can figure out which one it is, and then factor. All right, so turn off the video and come back when you're done. Okay, so when I do that, I get n and n. My choices here are 1 times 12, 2 times 6, or 3 times 4. All right, that is a negative, which means they must be opposite signs. So negative 1 and positive 12, or positive 1 and negative 12. Either way, when the signs are opposite, I end up canceling things out, which is equivalent to subtracting. So I really am looking for two things that multiply to 12 that subtract to 4. Right? It's not here. These would subtract to 11. It's this. They would subtract to 4. So we're going to have a 6 and a 2. Right, so they're opposite signs. This guy gets to choose. So since this is a positive 4, I must have put the positive with the larger number. Otherwise, I would have ended up with a negative 4. All right, and so again, this is the answer. But I'm going to check it over here to show that that's right. N times n is n squared. N times positive 6 is plus, positive 6n. Negative 2 times n is negative 2n, and negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. I combine these and I get n squared plus 4n minus 12. All right, we're going to do this one next. You're going to pause, but again, what you're looking for is two things that multiply to 64. The signs will be the same, so they will add to 16. Okay, so I'm looking for two things. Well, let's put these parentheses here. So I know it's got to be B and B. I'm looking for two things that multiply to 64. We're going to have a lot of choices here, so I'm going to have to start up high here. 1 times 64, whoops, 2 times 32, 3 doesn't go into it, 4 goes into it 16 times, 5 doesn't go into it, 6 doesn't go into it, 7 doesn't go into it, 8 goes into it 8 times. Since 8 and 8 there are a matching pair, that's it, right? There are no other options. All right, so for 64, I want two things that multiply together to give me 64 that add together to give me 16. Again, add because the signs are going to be the same, both positive or both negative, and you'll add them together to get that. All right, so 1 and 64 is 65, 2 and 32 is 34, 4 and 16 is 20, 8 and 8 is 16. This is the one. All right, so we're going to put 8 and 8 here. Both signs have to be the same, so either they're going to be both positive or both negative. This guy gets to decide, right? Are they both going to be positive or both be negative? There's no way I can add them together to get positive 16 if they're both negative, so that means they must both be positive. Right? So that should be the answer. Actually, I think we mentioned this the other day, that you could actually write this as b plus 8 squared if you wanted to. Right? I certainly wouldn't take off points if you left it like that, or give you bonus points if you made it like that, but they are the same. All right, if we multiply that out really quick, b times b, b squared, b times 8, 8b, 8 times b, 8b, and 8 times 8, 64. And I get b squared plus 16b plus 64. All right, I want you to do this one more on your own. Again, you're looking for two things that multiply to 24. The signs must be the same because that's positive. Since they're the same, you're going to end up adding to get to 4. All right, turn the video off and go ahead and do that one. Okay, so we're going to have x and x. All right, two things that multiply to 24. I think we already made this list on another video. So it's 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, and that's it. Because if we tried 5, it doesn't go in. 6 does go in, but it's already on the list, so that's the end. Right, so I'm looking for two things that multiply to 24, so one pair in this list that have to add to give me 4. All right, so I would try that. And I would say, well, 1 and 24 is going to be 25. 2 and 12 add together to give me 14. 3 and 8 add together to give me 24. And 4 and 6, I'm sorry, 3 and 8, why did I say 24? Let me go back because I can't remember what I said. These give me 25, these give me 14, this gives me 11, this gives me 10. None of them work, right? So what does that mean? Well, it means this does not factor. There's no pair that does the two things that we need it to do. It needs to multiply to 24 and add to 4. Right? Since that doesn't work for any of these, we say it does not, oops, does not factor. Or you could say DNF for short. Where you could say this polynomial is prime. Because remember, when we're factoring, we're trying to break it down into its prime factor. So you could say this is already prime. Okay, hopefully you weren't too frustrated by that one. Okay, let's take a look at the last two. Problem 16. All right, the reason I've chosen 16 and 20 is because, again, if you remember when we were talking about the different types of factoring we have, and GCF is one of them, and I said you should always do GCF first, because if you did not and you just looked at this, you would say, oh, wait a minute, that's not an easy general trinomial because the leading coefficient is not 1. Right? So you might think, oh, well, I guess I get to stop. But nope, you don't. Because if you look at all three terms, you see that it has a GCF of 5. right? So the first thing we have to do is factor out that 5. So again, I'm going to pull that 5 out to indicate I've already pulled it out, and then we'll write what I get showing that I've already pulled it out. So I'm going to divide each of these by 5. So 5n squared divided by 5 gives me n squared. Again, you can do it like this if you want and cancel to get that n, or you can just say, oh, I must have multiplied n squared by 5 to get 5n squared. Right? This would be 2n, again, 10n divided by 5. These would cancel and I'd get 2n. And then take a 5 out of 20 and I get 4. Now you can see this is an easy general trinomial. Right? It's got the 3 terms. The leading coefficient is now 1. Again, this 5 is just sitting out here waiting for you to factor this. And then the pattern of the exponents is the correct one. That this is twice as big as this, or this is half as big as this. All right, so then we're going to factor this. This one's another mean one here. We're looking for 2 things that multiply to 4 that add to 2. So my choices are 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. Hopefully you're realizing that neither of those are going to work. If I have 1 and 4 and they have to add together to 2, that's not going to work. That will add to 5. And 2 will not add to 2, that will add to 4. So this was factorable using GCF factoring, but this easy general trinomial is not factorable. So we would say that's it, right? Only factors by GCF. Okay, let's try number 20 because this one does work. So again, initially it does not look like an easy general trinomial. It's because a GCF is masking its true self. So let's pull that GCF out, and then we should be able to factor what's left. So I notice that there's a 5 in common to each of them. Again, that won't always work. Here that's a 4, here it's a 2, so don't think it's always going to be 5. All right, when I'm showing that I have divided it out. All right, don't put it out here to show that you want to divide it out. Show me that you have divided it out. I'm going to get v squared minus 6v plus 8. Again, I'm just dividing each term by 5. All right, this 5 is going to keep waiting right here while this guy factors. All right, so this says I'm looking for 2 things that multiply to 8 that add to 6. All right, so 8 is going to be 1 times 8 or 2 times 4. All right, so 2 things that multiply to 8 that add to 6. Well, 8 and 1 add to 9, so that can't be it. 2 and 4 do add to 6, so it's 2 and 4. So I'm going to have v and v, and we'll put 2 and 4. Right, the signs are the same. That's why I said add them together. Signs are the same, so they're going to either have to be both positive or both negative. This guy decides. If I want to get a negative 6v, I must be adding 2 negative numbers. All right, and I will let you check that to make sure that it's correct. Okay, see ya.